All right. So, in terms of what we're going to talk about, here we are today, delighted to be with you. There I am again. What I thought we would just talk about a little bit in broad strokes is a little bit about marketing and sales and sort of connecting to our customers. We'll talk a little bit about what it really is. And let me just get this kind of right. Connecting to customers. There's so many things we could talk about. I'm going to also there'll be an example and then a little bit of a just kind of summary to wrap things up together here. So we'll take it away from there. Okay. So first of all, I would say that most of you are already pretty good marketers. And the reason is we're great customers and we know what it takes to be served well. And I always think that's a fantastic place to start because you already have a body of knowledge. So even though in your own pursuit of whether you're marketing for your own company, whether you're trying to sell for your own business or for someone else's, and you're a member of that team, you already have a good sense of what works in the marketplace based on your own experience. So I would say let's start there. So do you recognize these logos here? Anybody? Okay, we do, right? Now you might say, okay, that's a trick question because of course we recognize this one, right? And Tom, you've almost got the whole thing there with our friends here because this swoosh means yes, I do it, right? And those are our friends at Nike, right? In the middle is they don't, well, they do make tea, but really they're known for making that great Starbucks coffee, the fuel of the morning. I love it. And of course, this favorite piece of fruit has changed our world with technology, or the Apple company. Exactly. Exactly, Belgica. Okay, so with these, as customers, what do you know? What do you know about these guys already, right? In terms of they use these um their logos, the brand marks here, their icons everywhere. It doesn't change. It's not a different color. It's not a different shape. It doesn't, the old mermaid here doesn't have a trident and trying to turn into King Poseidon. It's the same everywhere because so we recognize it. And it means more than that, right? In terms of not just recognition of the company, but we know what the quality is. We know what we're going to get. We have an idea of the value in terms of, what it means, what it will, how it will perform for us, what it means to you and I in terms of that value piece. So we already have a trust. We have a sense we know the company. And that becomes a really important part because customers remember who they are. They actually want that brand. And, I don't know if you've ever stood in the lineup to get new Nike shoes that are just issued or that brand new iPhone or any of those other wonderful toys that come out from the Apple store. Okay, they're not toys, but they're pricey toys, too pricey to be toys, but we love them anyway for that technology. So just thinking about it from that perspective, right? You already kind of know what's going on and what it means. So that recognition, that's what we're going for. And we do it with some easy to recognize brands and brand designs that are consistently used across those channels, right? When we talk about the omni channel. So that's what you know from the customer side. So then thinking about a little bit more from the business side, what's your definition of marketing? I'm hoping that you could answer this question using Mentimeter. And to use Mentimeter, you can either use the QR code or go to menti.com. You'll have to add in this long number here. But put in a definition of what you think marketing is. There we go. Fantastic. I love this. I mean, absolutely, it's about branding, but the idea of attracting customers, so getting their attention, keeping their attention, and getting them to action. Sales. Sales marketing is part of that. Showcasing products, showcasing the company, the expertise, promotion, awareness, communicating with the customer, advertising, absolutely. Fantastic. Wonderful. Good work. See, that test wasn't so hard, right? Okay, let's carry on. Let's have another one with that idea. Okay, so we've talked about the idea of marketing, it's sales, it's advertising, it's attracting attention, doing promotions, getting the word out there. So what are my options? What are those marketing channels? Well, that's a very fancy word, omni-channel, marketing channels, multi-channel marketing. What does it mean for you, for me? Oh, I apologize.
If you want, oh, there's the answers.
There they are. Yes, they're just not that pretty. They're not a pretty word cloud, but I love them nonetheless, right? And I love that you're thinking not just about social media, but thinking about word of mouth. How do we foster that? Thinking about things like going to events and having, trade shows, conferences. There's options for, billboards out of home, in terms of multiple ways to reach folks. That good old, that advertising in the mailbox, that junk mail we don't want. Um, it works and works well. And then things like our online website, right? SEO, thinking about e-commerce and of course ads happen everywhere, whether it's on Google or in a television or in a magazine. And we see lots of interesting ads with the hockey playoffs that are happening at this time, right? In terms of uh, lots of beer ads, lots of driving cars, trucks, and ads that are all happening are tied to that. All right. So there's lots of options out there. Sometimes we get a little bit stuck on thinking that it has to be one or the latest thing that's out there. And we think about them as sort of traditional or print or kind of offline uh, and online. But those are really blending, as you know. It's becoming a little bit less clear about what's happening offline versus what's happening online or digital channels because it at one time, long time ago, all of the ads that were placed, on radio, in newspaper, and magazines, were all meant to drive people towards TV ads because they were the most dynamic. They had, right, the ability to use visuals, all the visuals, people, acting and with music, with script, and the other ones, and you could see what they were doing, right? Radio couldn't do that. Newspaper, magazine couldn't do that. Now, even television is driving us to someone's website or someone's social media platform. So the direction has really changed. But what hasn't changed is that we want to use as many tools as possible to engage. So we see that we still have lots of channels. And again, in that idea of that omni-channel, that is making sure that the messaging is the same no matter which one of these platforms we use, right? So when we advertise that we've got something new, we've got we've got a great new promotion, we've got a fabulous new product out there, we've got a new service, we want to make sure that we've told the salesperson who's going out to sell it that we've got a brand new thing, because we've already talked directly to the customers. But sometimes in some companies, they forget to talk to the salespeople at the same time. So we want to make sure that we're getting all of the information out there on all of these channels. So again, consistency. Even you don't have to do all of these at once. Certainly in a smaller organization, especially for a solopreneur, that's not possible. We're not going to do it. It's too much, but it's thinking about the next step of picking just one or two of these and really targeting and focusing it. So good, clear message, consistent look, consistent wording, and thinking about, where do our customers hang out? Which one of these, is the right channel for our people, for our folks who want our products or services. So the next big question then is, right, who's your customer? So it's really important to think about who's your customer and what is the problem, or what is the opportunity? How can you help them? How are you helping them? What does your business do for them? Right? Maybe they know they have the problem. Maybe they don't know they have the problem yet. That you have a solution to share. And it's important to think about, number one, how you're different, right? That competitive analysis, where do you fit in the marketplace? But also thinking about the other side in terms of what is it that the customer needs to do better? Or what is it that they want to avoid? What do they want to improve upon? And maybe they don't even know that they have the problem. You've got to explain the problem and then provide them the solution. So it is an important element here just to have that side of it, of our thinking. So those are, right, consistent, and who is our customer? Who are they? Where do they hang out? And how are we going to talk to them? How are we going to help them? So I thought maybe we would walk through a bit of an example together. And since we're here at night, I'm sure you've all had a bit of a long day. And so we'll try this Mentimeter again. And hopefully it's not too sticky, too slow. But I want you to think about what stops you from getting a good sleep. Maybe what keeps you up at night, or what just keeps you from having that wonderful sleep. And I'd appreciate if you could share some of those thoughts with me. I mean, maybe you're not tired at all. Maybe you're still fueled up from Starbucks. Stress is a big one. Stress. Yes. Yes. Deadlines. Yes. Sore muscles, right? If you've ever lived in a household with wee ones, right? Um, yeah, feeling behind. I mean, there's also people who say, oh, they could fall asleep anywhere, right? Anytime, any place. They can doze off. We've got kids, we've got dogs, we've got pets of all kinds, right? Fantastic. Yes. many thoughts going on. You got that right, Christine, right? Cannot turn it off at night. Absolutely. Well, there can be a variety of reasons. And in terms of thinking about how do we change that, right? Well, I thought I would just introduce you to a couple of interesting local companies that actually work on this problem. So I agree with you that there's lots of different reasons why we don't sleep, and in fact, how do we even tackle it? One of the ones here, maybe you thought about some of these, maybe you didn't, but something as simple as, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to switch them. Being too hot, too cold. Too cold, you can often add another blanket. Too hot, what do you do? So there's a local entrepreneur and has developed a line of sleepwear, pajamas for cooling. So being a very soft and not being any kind of garment that for people who have quite neurosensitivity, right? So neurodiverse often don't like the seams and scratchy and itchy, and well, okay, most of us don't like that. So these are wonderful pajamas, right? So she's done an excellent job, and I would say that it's a kind of a fun company to go and have a look at in terms of looking at how she's marketing. It's somebody local and working a lot with influencers and looking for targeting women to begin with. In her business and doing that quite well, but looking for places where people are talking about cannot cool down at night, too hot when they sleep. There's also a Canadian company that sells a mattress. They're called Ghost Bed. I'm not really sure why that is their name, but they sell those mattress toppers that help cool. And as we had a record temperature day like today, right? Too hot. So thinking about, okay, one of the problems, too hot. And I love the uncomfortable sleeping place. Yeah, on the plane. Yes. I know they sell those neck pillows, but that's that's not enough. Being stressed. There's another Canadian company called Sleep Gift. And actually, this is a blanket that's designed not only to be a weighted blanket, right, which is a heavier one shown to calm us down and by just having that weight on there, but this is actually has an electromagnetic blocking, a radio wave activity blocking, because we talk about so this is built on the science of having interruption from all of the technology around us. So having a technologically cluttered environment around us. So those electronic waves that we count on for great Wi-Fi also can be in for some people quite an interruption to their sleep. So an interesting idea once again. And another local company called Fern and Petal, they're doing a great job advertising and focusing on using aromatherapy. So again, what kind of scents can we use to induce sleep? And again, I'm hoping that you'll go and have a look at some of these because they do a great job in terms of explaining their products and reaching out and connecting to their folks online, and is the easiest to go and see. But some interesting marketing there. Again, important to have that consistent message, particularly for a product that may be a little bit harder to explain, such as the blankets at Sleep Gift, because it's not just a weighted blanket, but it has an ability to block those radioactive wave. They're not radioactive waves. My apologies. EMF waves. So electromagnetic frequencies. And again, what is the problem? And so, I only learned about these blankets a couple of years ago. I didn't even realize that there was a problem, or such a problem, and certainly that I didn't realize there was even a solution. Then other problems of that uncomfortable bed, whether it's uncomfortable because it's too hard or too soft, but maybe it's also for tired bodies, achy bodies, people that need to sit up, or they can't lay back flat, any of those things. There's all kinds of problems with people sleeping. We sleep less now than we ever have. So it's something that we all have in common. And there's a lot of different solutions. There's many more, of course, than here, but I just wanted to pick a few highlights. And then maybe sometimes, like, the idea of sleeping on an airplane, maybe I don't even know what the solution would be. And maybe, right, there's that idea. So the customer might not know they have a problem. The customer might not know you have a solution for them. So again, having a really clear message, having a consistent message is so important when you're trying to tell your story. Because as you know, there's lots of competition out there, whether it's direct competition, somebody selling pajamas, you sell pajamas, they sell pajamas, you sell blankets, they sell blankets. How do we differentiate? So it has to be a really clear story. And things like beds, we don't necessarily buy those all the time. So we don't think about these brands all the time. So hopefully you're still awake and I haven't put you to sleep, because we've talked about so much about being tired and how could you be cozy in your bed. So if we were someone who sold one of these products for this kind of a sleep problem, how would we connect with our customers? How do you find them? We've got a great product. We can help somebody fall asleep. Maybe we've come up with a brand new scent that all you have to do is open it up, have a little sniff, and you fall fast asleep. And not something that knocks you out. Right? So we have to be thinking about kind of where do all those insomniacs hang out? Where are they? And where will we find them? So thinking about, where's our customer? How are we going to find them? Which channels are they on? Are they online? Are they looking at magazines? Are they listening to radios? Are they listening to podcasts? Where are they? What are they doing? And how will we find them, and how will we connect? So there's a couple of you know, major events, so you say, well, so to start, how would you start to tackle this? All right. Well, first of all, World Sleep Day. Did you know there's a World Sleep Day? Who knew? March 18th was World Sleep Day. People are talking about it online. There's the Sleep Foundation organization. From that, we could dive in a little bit further, because there's sleep consultants. So there are sleep consultants out there, primarily when you look at them on Google, our friend. When you use the search engine there, you look at them, they're talking to parents, parents with small children, trying to get the babies to sleep so the parents can sleep, right? But there's all kinds of reasons that people don't sleep. And we talked here in the chat, right, about that stress, about not being able to turn off the brain. So having a great sleep hygiene, which is a great routine at night. Maybe you need some other counseling. Because it's has a great impact on mental health when people are sleep deprived. They're not at their top performance. They're not their top emotional best. We're not robust and we're not as resilient without our sleep. So there's lots of people online who talk about this, from people who are very are, say, doctors and formal organizations, to sleep coaches who work with families with babies who are small and don't sleep. There's influencers out there, again, often they're parents, but talking about different solutions, different lifestyles, and finding a solution. So if we were the business, this was our business, We want to go and follow these people. Have a look at the words they're using. How are they describing the problems? Remember, we've got our new scent. You just one whiff of this wonderful fragrance and you are out like a light, right? Okay, it's fantastic. Nobody knows we have it. Nobody knows about the solution. How do we tell them? So first of all, we want to find out what their problems are. How does our customer think about this problem? In terms of what are they already what are they already doing? What have they already tried? What are their frustrations? And what would they love the most? And how can we help them with that? In terms of thinking about reaching them, one method online is to use things like hashtags. And then there are platforms online like RightTag that helps you find suitable hashtags to, again, find your customers and find a way to connect with them. All right. Well, maybe you'll give me a little thumbs up or use one of those other reactions just to let me know you are still awake and you haven't gone off to look for your best pillow yet or put your bunny slippers on because all that sleep talk. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So as we move into the second half here, let's talk a little bit about strategy. I've got some questions to get you thinking. I've tried to put in a bunch of different resources because I know we're at different stages at looking at the idea of omni-channel. So we'll talk a little bit about those and then we'll wrap up with a little bit about that money question about how do we budget for this? And then I think we'll be out of time. Tom, I forgot to ask you exactly how long you wanted me to talk, and that was probably a little bit dangerous because I kind of get carried away. I love this stuff. All right. So let's move this bar out of the way. And thinking, first of all, again, about that brand, right? Nike, just do it. Starbucks, your cup of coffee, your way. Sit as long as you like. Come on in anytime. And Apple, it's going to be innovative. It's going to be easy to use. And it's going to work in with all of its peer devices, right? And so thinking about that strong branding, about your brand. So my question for you is kind of about you and your brand, your image. Do you stand out from the crowd? And how do you do that, right? So again, thinking about logos, that packaging, that online presence, it doesn't need to be really complicated, but it needs to be clear what you do, talking to your competitive advantage, and consistent. There's some great tools out there like canva.com that has quite a fulsome piece of software and platform for creating visual designs, your branding package. You can create your brand on there, even with the free version, and great for ideas as well. There's 50 different templates to kind of get your ideas thinking as part of the educational resources that are in Canva and showing you some great brands. Of course, you're on social media personally. And how about your brand, right? Your personal brand on there. And for your company, how are they tied together? Having a look at that. Which platforms? Now, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit, we can carry on. You can't be on all of them, right? So pick the ones where your customer is, right? So again, connecting to the customer, use that to help them the priority decision. And then how many can you manage? Hootsuite has a great dashboard. There's some other other ones, that are out there in terms of using that dashboard of HubSpot and Salesforce and Buffer to organize things so that you could put your posts in advance, have your content planned out. But there's, again, having it posted consistently, right? I'm going to use that word a lot, obviously. But in terms of having a message out there, even if it was 4 times a year, It's there, it's consistent. So when historically we look, your customers, your new customers look back, they go, okay, they post once a year, once a month, once a week, whatever it is. And the themes carry on so that it's around your company, your customers, your industry, and where things are going. Again, a little bit about how the company works and a lot about the customers and the industry and the problem that you're going to help them solve or the opportunity you're going to help them take advantage of. So there's lots of other, this one's of our Facebook's analytical tools here, talking about measurement and monitoring, and I'm happy to share all of these with you. Again, Instagram Insights, using different tools to monitor, to measure the effectiveness of what you are posting. The Social Media Examiner has a great list, and it shows you the paid and unpaid options. So again, consistency, and we're measuring. We're gonna what's working, what's not. We need to know. In terms of that look and feel, this is a very simple brand template, a brand guideline template, and what I love about it, this one is from Miro specifically, but it just walks you through in terms of what's our brand, right? Our mission statement, our logo, and having a guideline like this makes it easy when you grow. When you grow your business, when you're going to say you're going to have print advertising, you have everything already laid out. This is how we use our logo. This is how we do not use our logo, right? What are our colors? It's not just any green. It's not just any purple. It's not just any orange. It's very specific. And that's really important to keep it consistent, because if you were selling a bigger product or service, something that perhaps people don't buy all the time. We talked about beds, cars, television sets, things that cost a little bit more money, last a long time. People don't buy them often enough to remember the name of your company if you change the name of your company every 3 years. If you change the look or don't update old looks or old names as you change them, it ends up leaving a lot of clutter out in our digital space, and it makes it harder for folks to follow us and find us. We know what we're doing, and this changes make sense to us. But if somebody only comes to you every couple of years, 2 or 3 changes in that time makes it harder for them to follow. And I'm sure you're a lot smarter than me, but I need to do something more than 3 times or 4 times to remember it, working with a new idea often, right? And that's the same idea. Your customers don't always see you as often as you do. And so it's important to have that kind of consistent look. And a brand template guideline is certainly something that can help us do that. Again, with that branding on your website, when you're thinking about your website, it might have an e-commerce component. It might not. Is your website there for just awareness, attracting attention, or the e-commerce side, getting them to action? What do you want the customer to do? Be really clear. What is that? What is the key purpose of your website? It might be recruitment. You might be looking to grow the company and using that website for that purpose. Depends on your industry, right? So some of the great tools, one of my longtime favorites, BDC Website Analyzer. This is a free website analyzer that gives us great information. Okay. All right. Thank you for that time check. One of the things about the Business Development Bank of Canada, they have a ton of fantastic resources, templates for small business, for medium-sized business. And they are provided freely. And so something great to think about, looking at our Google ranking, Google My Business, as ways to find out how we're doing in terms of search and SEO. When someone goes looking for us to solve that sleep problem, do we come up on the page 1 or not? Using tools like Ubersuggest to help us find great keywords for that search engine piece, right? So again, consistency on our website across, and things like email, email marketing, customization. We all want to be treated separately and independently. So using tools like MailChimp, fantastic free option, as well as their paid option, is a way to keep the connection, grow the relationship with our customers. All right. That's a lot of information. That there's a lot of options, but let's talk a little bit about the money. So, in general, companies are spending about 25% of their budget on marketing. And you'll remember that could be sales, that could be promotion, that could be print, that could be website, social media ads, you name it, about 25% or perhaps 10% of revenues. It will vary a little bit with where the company is in its own journey, as well as the industry it's in and where the preference is about how that budget is spent. Specifically, though, for social media, right? Kind of look at, and this is some great information from HubSpot, but you're spending kind of the balance of your money across content to all the way to that strategy development. So more being spent on how we're creating and keeping up our strategy, but we still have to think about software for things like editing and paying for some ads as well as perhaps some influencers. So that kind of gives us an overview, a general idea. And I thought you might be interested a little bit about what do people spend on their websites. So looking at the smaller companies, so sales under 2 million, right? Thinking that spending about $20,000 on their websites. And of course, that growing up. And if there was e-commerce and it needed more maintenance and there was more things happening, we'd have to have more activity, more folks on board to keep it going. There's just sort of some general thinking. And again, this was from the Business Development Bank of Canada. And I believe this was a 2021 survey. So it's fairly recent information there. So just to kind of give us a general guideline of what would be spending. And you can see that it doesn't go away. As we get more sales, we have to spend a little bit more and keep everything going, keep everything happening and talking with our folks. So I'll ask you if you have any questions or any comments in just 1 minute. But I thought, okay, after all that information, where do we start? So thinking about just take a few ideas, right? Use them consistently. And then monitors to see what works. Get the feedback from your customers. Use surveys, use evaluations, and get their opinions. Repeat what works and try something new. Add something on.